Hello, friends, and welcome to Release Train Engineer interview session. Friends, I'm Sunil Sharma. I'm an Agile consultant based in Netherlands. And here at Career Talk, we invite Agilists from around the world to share their valuable experience and insight with all of us. Friends, before we start, I would like to request a small favor from you. If you find this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more such videos in future. Your one like is a big motivation for all of us. Your support help us keep creating valuable content for you. So friends, today we have a guest joining us from Texas, USA, Malcolm Johnson. He is an agile coach and RT, worked with various Fortune 500 clients across the world. So Malcolm, thank you for joining us today and help us with RT interview questions. Malcolm.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for reaching out and giving me the opportunity. I love to help as much as I can.
Great. So Malcolm, before I share my screen, why don't you tell us about yourself quickly and then we just start with Q&A session?
Sure, not a problem. My name is Malcolm Johnson. I reside in the United States of America, originally from New York, but now I reside in Texas. I've been in the Agile field for a little over a decade now in many different capacities. Started off as a Scrum Master, spent some time as an Agile coach, but most recently I've been serving organizations as a release train engineer or RTE within the SAFe framework. I like sports. I like to hang out with my friends. I like to spend time with family. That's very important to me. And I like to build teams and coach people.
Great. Thanks, Malcolm. Okay, so shall we start?
Let's go.
Okay, so here the very first and most important question for RT, if you are looking for a RT role. So what does a day of a release train engineer looks like? What do you guys do all day?
It's an interesting question. I think the answer is it depends on the day. Some days are a little bit more filled than other days. I would say maybe a light day is a couple of different ceremonies with teams at the team level and the program level. So, there might be an art sync, which is an Agile release train sync, possibly a scrum of scrums. I might be in a couple of team meetings, maybe a daily scrum, maybe go into a refinement session, things of that nature. I will also look over metrics, just look over some of the delivery and progression of delivery items, reach out to some folks to make sure that things are going as planned, things that we planned in our PI planning are still going the way that we expected it to, and then probably sync up with the Scrum Masters. On a extremely busy day, which would probably be kind of like leading up to PI planning, that's when things are pretty hectic. You want to make sure that your 2-day PI planning session goes well. So there's a lot of pre-work involved. There's a lot of dependencies that need to get set up. Depending on the size of your train, the trains that I've had recently were 10 teams and 15 teams respectively. All those teams have dependencies, needs, follow-ups on requirements, decisions from leadership, things of that nature. You have to help facilitate those conversations, follow up on those things, connect the dots, and help make sure that your teams are ready. So on days leading up to PI planning, those are probably the busiest days. So that's kind of a low end and high end kind of schedule, what a daily routine looks like for a release train engineer.
Great. So if I have to summarize this, the day-to-day work of an RT involve facilitating different meetings, events, monitoring different progresses, and working with various stakeholders to ensure that the release is delivered successfully, I think, right? And I think this role required a strong communication, leadership skills, abilities, and of course, the deep understanding of agile methodologies and safe principles. So yeah, great. Okay. And you talked about SOS meetings. So could you just want to elaborate a little bit more on this, like what exactly RT is doing there when we are having SOS meetings?
Sure. So Scrum and Scrum meetings are usually, and I know they take different shapes and forms in certain organizations, but usually when you have an initiative, a piece of work or deliverable that needs to be done that has several parties involved, meaning that these parties are dependent on each other. These parties need to sync their delivery patterns in order to bring that deliverable to fruition and bring value to our users. You usually want to have some type of regular cadence where you meet, just to ensure that, you know, what this individual team said they would promise they would deliver at a certain period of time is still on track. And is it still relevant to this team and things of that nature? So weekly, bi-weekly, sometimes I've seen longer depending on the initiative. I like weekly. You just want to meet on a regular cadence to ensure that everybody's still in good standing. And if anything new has come up or if any risks have been seen, have bubbled up, you want to make sure that everybody's aware and then can take the necessary steps to kind of mitigate or be able to move forward.
Of course. So just to summarize, in SOS meeting, the Scrum Master discussed different dependencies, risk issues that need to be addressed, and the RT would ensure that the meeting stay on track and all the necessary issues are addressed properly. And the teams
Right.
come up with plan to resolve them. I think that's the important role of RT over there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're as an RTE, it's kind of your job to there's a lot of things that come up that the team might not be able to resolve themselves. So it's your job to kind of at that next level up to take that, put some type of plan in motion that the team can be involved in and that you can help them. Or if it's above you as well, make sure that you're escalating those things to the people that can take the appropriate steps to bring resolution.
Great. Great, Malcolm. And one last thing over here, because I think most of our viewers are always curious about matrices and all. So I know because being an RT myself, I know that I work with a lot of matrices, but I want to hear from you, and maybe then I can also add one or two things over there on matrices part. That as an RT, what basically we review on weekly basis or day-to-day basis, Malcolm.
On metrics.
So, for
Okay. So
example,
mm,
most of the time we analyze the flow. So,
mm,
basically, flow is the measure of how efficient an organization is. So we have different flows. So, for example, flow velocity, flow time, flow load, flow efficiency, flow predictability, and similar kind of agile matrices. On predictability. Yeah, I mean all those things. So, if you can also want to share a couple of things on matrices, that will be also great.
okay, sure. So yeah, do look at flow. I kind of break metrics down into 3 different areas: value, delivery, and quality. So most leadership they are very interested in delivery, right? So usually, usually what we're looking at there are, for example, understanding of team's velocity, understanding the amount of story points that they're taking on per sprint, understanding their say-do ratio, understanding if they're able to groom out a full feature and have all the stories ready for that feature, seeing the progression of what the percentage of progression is on that particular feature in comparison to where we are in the particular program increment. That kind of helps you get a gauge at is this still deliverable timely? Is it not? Are we further behind? It helps you understand to ask questions, to reach out. Do you need assistance here? Do we need to renegotiate anything? Do we need to have a discussion with stakeholders? Things of that nature. One of I would also look at cycle time for my teams.
Yeah, lead time, cycle time. Yeah.
So that would give me the opportunity to understand how they're delivering and sometimes understand what some of the key factors are and what might be delaying possible delivery. It gives me the opportunity to see where they're spending the most time in the particular workflow of an item, and then possibly understanding or having a conversation at how we can mitigate or eliminate waste from that particular part of the workflow so that we can shorten the cycle time. And so cycle time is basically just a measure of and it depends on where exactly you're starting, but usually from the start to the end point of delivery of a particular item. And there are many things within that during the workflow. So there's, of course, the refinement of that item. There's the planning of that item. There's the actual development work involved. There's, of course, QA, quality assurance, testing, what type of testing you're doing, whether it's automated or manual. Before that, there's usually peer review. Once development and code is put in place, there's usually a team member that will review that code. All the way through the promotion process through the environments. So you want to see all those different areas of the workflow and see where you can eliminate some waste if there is ability to do so. Also, the metrics that I'll look at are quality. So I definitely want to know how many tickets are coming in from production. I also want to know from every environment involved in the process, from test to UAT to production, how many defects we're putting in those environments. It helps me understand how well we're testing in lower environments. That's extremely important because you don't want to promote things into production. You don't want to put issues into production. So you really need to test very well in the environments before production. So those are a few of the metrics that I usually kind of keep track of just to make sure that we're in good standing and we're pushing out quality deliverables to our user customer.
Great, Malcolm, for that elaborated answer. Okay, so one last thing in this day-to-day work of RTE, and I think that move on. So one important point is regarding the inspect and adapt. So I think the RTE definitely facilitated this inspect and adapt event, which is a key event in SAFE. So yeah, I mean the IA and A is a retrospective meeting with the RTE agile teams and other stakeholders, basically to reflect the previous release and identify different areas for improvement, I think. So this is one of the key activity which also come under the purview of RTE. Yeah, Malcolm, you want to elaborate a bit? Yeah, on this, anything?
Yeah, as you mentioned, this definitely a retrospective of sorts, more at the program level. And it's very key and very important because it allows you the opportunity to look back at the way your program and teams are working. Also, it gives you the opportunity to look back at any experiments you may have put in place for improvement and see if those things were successful or maybe not as successful, and be able to make adjustments as necessary. Also, you look at key things versus the particular items you put in place, the particular items that you planned with this value and what actual value, what you were able to actually deliver. If you were able to deliver something in full, why was that the case? You start to kind of dive into, and ask questions and look at, what was the reason why we weren't able to deliver this? Was it maybe our expectations are off, and in our planning, we might have done something wrong? Did something come into play that impeded us and delayed this deliverable? Were we lacking some knowledge? Did we not do enough research? You have to, ask these questions and dive into it and see what you can do to put yourself in a better position in the future. And inspect and adapt is a prime and ideal scenario for asking those questions and coming about possible resolutions to some of those challenges.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to summarize, the RTE would lead this particular meeting as to ensure that all the feedback is captured and all the action items are created so that all the Scrum Master and the teams can work on them. So yeah, thank you, Malcolm. I think we can move on. We have spent a lot of time on this question, but I think it's very important one. for people to know. So, okay, so let's move on to the second question. Yep. So this is as an RT, how do you balance the need and priorities of the different stakeholders, such as PO, business leaders, and development teams? Of course, I mean it's very difficult. So I want to hear from you, Malcolm. Yeah, I think this is the most difficult thing to do as a RT, Malcolm.
Yeah, I think it is the most difficult. In theory, it's pretty simplistic, but in implementation, it can be challenging because everyone from all sides has a different opinion on what's important, what they would like to do, what they want to get done. So one thing that must be done is you usually need to get all parties together. So you need to get leadership from product together, leadership from technology. You need to get stakeholders involved, and you have to make sure that everybody understands that, our goal is to one, ensure that this company is successful, and understand that in order for this company to be successful, we need to service our clients in the best way possible. So in order to do that, you need to understand what would make this business successful for your particular area. And usually you come about things like KPIs or key performance indicators that help you understand. Well, first you put goals in place, like you have business goals in place for your particular area. You have business goals that you put in place, right? And then to determine whether or not you're moving forward or backwards from those business goals, you put KPIs in place or key performance indicators. And once you have that, it kind of gives everybody an understanding of these are the things that we're trying to achieve. And whatever we do should be in support of trying to achieve those goals. And these KPIs are how we're going to measure whether or not we're getting closer or further away from those goals. And then once you have those and then go to the program and team level, you have to understand that to achieve these business goals, we must service our client in a certain way. We must have goals for our clients. Our clients have challenges. Clients being users or customers, they have challenges. And we need to understand those challenges and then work to solve those challenges. And that will help push us in the proper direction for our business KPIs. And then usually people use like OKRs or success metrics or something like that once they have user goals in place, how they're going to service and help resolve the challenges of their users. And they put measurements in place. So I call them success metrics to understand whether or not you're actually solving any challenges or what you're putting in place isn't doing much, isn't providing much value. So once you kind of have those two things in place, excuse me, understand where your business is trying to go and have business goals. And then in order to support those business goals, understand the challenges of your users and have success metrics, understanding how we solve those challenges. It kind of helps everybody understand what they should be doing, because there might be a whole list of items, but if they don't fit into the motif of it's going to solve this challenge for our users, which is then going to drive us towards a particular business goal, then you understand that that's not of priority and not important. And so it slides down the list. And you just want to focus on things that are going to drive us to success in our metrics regarding our users, and gonna help our business reach the goals that they're trying to reach.
Yeah, Malcolm. So just to summarize, what I understand, the two key important messages: you have to set the prioritization, your priorities, and you have to manage their expectation. So as a RT, you must set different priorities to different stakeholders based on their project goals and objectives. So they may require, you know, this particular thing required your understanding with respect to the project scope, the timeline, and the resources. I think that's a key important thing. You have to set the priorities and then managing expectation. So different stakeholders have different expectations, right? So you have to provide the realistic timelines, and you have to be very transparent about the project progress. So this will definitely going to help to avoid any misunderstanding and the conflict in future. So I think those are the two important things that, if you ask me, to balance the need and the priorities of the different stakeholders. Yeah, Malcolm.
Yeah, that's yeah, you definitely want to set expectations as far as timeline, but it's truly important. I feel like a lot of times organizations focus too heavily on delivery, and they haven't set that baseline yet about what their specific goals should be, or they have goals and they're not properly aligned. So I really try to get programs that I work with in tandem with the stakeholders to truly understand like what goals do we have, or what goals are is the business trying to achieve, and then work backwards from there. Like how, so for example, the business goal for our particular area, or maybe our particular product, could be to increase usage, right? So the goal for this trades product is to increase usage. The business feels like increasing usage would be the most beneficial thing to moving the business forward. So now, once everyone understands that and that goal is set, it helps you understand what you should do, what type of changes and features you should put in the product. Because if you put or make a change to the product and it is not going to make people who are not using the system use it, or make people who are using it less use it more, then you understand that that's not priority. Right. And so it helps you understand what is priority. And that doesn't necessarily have too much to do with timeline. Like, you do want to communicate what can be done in a particular time, but you definitely want to have, excuse me, you definitely want to have a baseline understanding of what is important so that you can prioritize properly.
Great,
Excuse me.
Malcolm. Okay, so I think we are good on this. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so yeah, this is again one of the problem which most of the time we face. So how do you address the resistance to change or doubt about the benefit of SAFe, especially for the stakeholders who are still inclined toward the traditional project management methodologies, right? So yeah, Malcolm, interesting one for you.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think just as human beings in general, we have a resistance to change. So for me, I try to make it seem as if we're not introducing change, or that I'm not introducing change. I want everyone to be involved in anything that we do. I want them to feel like they've contributed to any change, quote unquote, that's been made. So the one thing I do with teams, programs, everybody is, first, we want to outline our challenges. And then we want to all be on the same page and understand that we have challenges. What are those challenges? We then want to based on some of the metrics like KPIs and OKRs that we spoke about before, understand what challenges are priority and what challenges might not be as important. Once we understand that, and everybody agrees that we have a particular set of challenges, then we could talk about how we're going to solve those challenges. And then myself, I kind of just, everybody is open to suggesting something that can solve a challenge. And then I'll just kind of guide that conversation and maybe suggest things that I've done before. And a lot of times the thing I've done before are out of the framework. And so it becomes less of me coming in and introducing something and more of us as a team having a conversation about challenges, and then us as a team coming up with solutions. And the RTE is just somebody that suggested some things that he's done previously that have worked, and they're more open to trying those things, because it's not just something that's been force fed to them. It's something that everybody feels like we came together as a team and put together and everybody contributed. So, and sometimes we'll try things that aren't necessarily my idea. Somebody else might have an idea and everybody thinks it's worth trying. I mean, you just have to make sure that you minimize the risk involved in trying it. So you might need to time box it, or you might need to try it on one team and not maybe every team or something like that, so you can minimize risk. But sometimes you try things that aren't exactly from the framework, or it's not your idea as a RTE. And if it works, then great. And if it doesn't work, then you can always kind of fall back on a traditional kind of frameworks and things that come from your previous experience. So I'd say that the biggest thing is not to just come in and introduce change. It's to work with the team to develop change together.
Okay, okay. So just to summarize, we have to engage all our stakeholder in this process. Basically, it's very important to involve our stakeholders in safe implementation process. So this will help them to feel like they are part of this change and they have a say in different things, which we are doing. So by involving them, we can identify their concerns and we can work together to find the solutions that address their needs, I think. So that's the summary for me, Malcolm. Okay,
Sounds
and
right.
I think one important thing over here also, like to educate them and to have the open communication about these changes, I think. So of course, we can educate them about all the basics of safe, their principles, their benefits, kind of session or a workshop, and maybe we can share some success stories from other organization or other projects, something like that. Malcolm also is, I think, a good starting point if we
Agreed.
face this kind of resistance. Yeah.
Agreed, definitely. That's usually, some of the things you do when you first get there. You hold workshops, you go through explanations, you do coaching sessions with different groups, whether it be teams or leadership or stakeholders or what have you, just to familiarize them with, the same framework and the structure of it, and familiarize them with like processes, the roles, and agreement on what's expected from each role. So things of that nature. Yeah, that's usually kind of some of the upfront things that are done.
Great. I think let's move on. Okay. So yes, this is again very important aspect of being an RT to manage different risks. So yeah, Malcolm, what are the different strategies or how do you manage the risk of your complete program or a portfolio?
Uh, yeah, so usually, you manage risk at all times. But usually the plan for how you're managing those risks usually comes up in the PI plan as you work through your features, stories for the PI plan that's upcoming. Then the teams usually identify risks at that point. And we do a couple of things. One is we roam the risks. So we give, and ROAM is an acronym for resolved, owned, accepted, or mitigated. So the risks usually fall within one of those four areas. Resolved obviously means that it was a risk, uh, it was handled, and so now it's resolved. It's no longer a risk. Uh, Owned mean that there's a risk. There's some type of strategy in place, and somebody has ownership of that strategy, whether it be the Scrum Master, product owner, it could even be a team member, it could be myself. Somebody owns making sure that what was put in place actually happens in order to oversee, mitigate, and put the plan in place for that risk. Accepted means that it is a risk. There's not much that can be done about it. We're accepting that it's a risk, and we're just going to move forward with it being a risk. And mitigated means that there's a strategy in place, a full-blown strategy in place, that it was a large risk. The strategy is going to turn into a much smaller and less impactful risk, and we can move forward with that. So usually during the planning session, the PI planning session, teams look at their risks and put all of these risks into one of these four key areas. Second thing that we usually do is I usually ask teams to, on a scale from 1 to 4, determine how what is the probability, one, of this risk occurring, and two, how impactful this risk is to the particular deliverable. When you have a release train of 8, 9, 10 teams, even a little bit less than that, and all these teams have different risks, the bandwidth in which you have to monitor and oversee and help and assist with these risks is not enough. So you need to prioritize which risks need more focus than others. And if you understand how likely it is to happen and how impactful that risk is, it helps you determine where you can shift some of your focus. So for example, if something is a 1 probability, meaning it probably won't happen, but it's a 4 on impact, that's probably a focus area for me. Because even if it doesn't, if its likelihood of happening is low, if it does happen, it throws the whole deliverable off track. That's something that might be like a key area versus something that is maybe a 4, it's highly likely to happen, but it's a 1, it's a 4 probability, but a 1 on impact, meaning that it's going to happen, but it's not going to affect the deliverable that much. That might be less of a focus for me. So understanding roamed risk and understanding the probability and impact of risk helps myself and leadership understand where we should be putting focus areas, our focus in particular areas to help teams with the risks that they see.
Okay, great. So just to summarize, managing risk in such a large scale agile project requires a combination of different strategies that includes identifying and prioritize different risks, developing contingency plans. You have to then monitor those risks. And then, of course, we have to come up with a culture of transparency and collaboration. Because if team will be not transparent enough to share their risk with us, it will be very difficult if they come up at the last moment, right? So I think you have to come up, we have to foster the culture of transparency and collaboration. And of course, we have to implement different agile practices in best practices, for example, CIE and CD, because it's very important to monitor all these kind of risk over a period of time. Okay,
Yeah.
so good. Okay, I think we can move on. Okay, so this is about all about continuous improvement. So how do you promote a culture of continuous improvement within your release trains, and what techniques do you use to identify implement opportunities for improvement? So that's a question, Malcolm.
So definitely you spoke earlier about, or just spoke about like transparency and having a environment of like psychological safety, because you don't want people to have a challenge or make a mistake and then keep it to themselves. The only way that you can improve is if you realize and communicate that there is a challenge or there was possibly a mistake made, so that you can look back on why that happened and then put things in place or try things to make sure that doesn't happen again in the future. So that's the first thing. And I'm glad that you mentioned it, having that environment of psychological safety and this kind of attitude of continuously improving through looking at the past. So there are many different ceremonies that serve as retrospectives for the program and the team, or the release training and the team. So you have the expect and adapt. You have the teams retrospectives themselves. We usually have a retrospective after PI planning. Sometimes we'll have discussions that are similar to retrospective in the art sync. Sometimes we'll have ad hoc. If something comes up that's of urgency, we'll have an ad hoc meeting where we get the appropriate relevant people together and talk about what happened and put things in place to ensure that we can mitigate that happening or eliminate that happening in the future. Excuse me. So, but when that happens, you have to, when you come about these ideas, trial runs, experiments to work on the things that might have happened in the past, you have to keep track of that. So usually what my release trains will do is we'll have what we call an improvement backlog, which is similar to a product backlog or a technology backlog. You have a list of items that you would like to put in place or try. You prioritize them as necessary, and prioritization usually goes by how impactful the particular challenge is. So we have some challenges that are extremely impactful to the train and some challenges that are a little bit less impactful. So the challenges that are more impactful, any idea or experiment we're putting in place for that are higher priority. And on a weekly basis, we look at our improvement backlog and look at the things that we're putting in place and review how are we doing with that. Usually each item has some type of metric involved with it so that we understand if there is improvement being made or not, if what we're doing is actually moving the needle or if what we're doing is not doing much at all. And weekly, that particular item that we're trying out, well, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, it depends on the particular item. Some items you don't see much movement in a week, it might take a little bit longer. So you meet when it's appropriate and you just look to see like, okay, what we put in place, is that helping us? Is it getting us the expected results that, or the results that we expected? So that's kind of how I look at and work with my train as far as building in this attitude and culture of continuously improving.
Great, welcome. Okay, so I just want to add two small points over here. What I have done with my teams. So basically, of course, it's there in most of the organization, which is called Community of Practices, COPs. So basically, we come up with this COPs to enable the knowledge sharing and collaboration among the different agile teams. So for example, we may have a COP for test automation, we have a COP for DevOps. So where all the team members can share best practices and learn from each other. In fact, we have chapters for Scrum Masters as well. So that the different Scrum Masters can come together, they can share their challenges, their issues, what are the best practices which they implemented in their own projects, so we can replicate into other projects, things like that. So I think this is the one thing which we have done, which of course promote this kind of continuous improvement culture. And the other thing which I want to highlight is agile maturity assessment. So what we have done that uh, after every PI, we conduct all these agile maturity assessment just to evaluate the agile practices within the release trains so that we can identify the different areas for improvement for us. So that will be like a input for us to different Scrum Masters, to RTG, for the product managers, to everyone who is involved, that okay, this particular area is need improvement out of 7 different areas which we are focusing on safe, right? So I think these are the two best practices things which we have implemented. Of course, these are not the only thing, but two of the important things. Of course, after that we have different experimentation which we used to do, in our IA thing. And of course, continuous learning is of course always the part of continuous improvement. But these are the two important things which I want to highlight over here, Malcolm. Yeah.
Okay. Do you use any specific, there are many out there, but do you use any specific maturity assessment?
Yeah. So if you go in safe website, if you go in measure and grow, you will find. And for all the different 7 areas, they have different templates, how you can conduct those workshops. So it's there in detail. But I think
Okay,
you
so
can have an access only. I think you are SPC. I think I'm not sure, but you can just try. So I mean, safe is so much restrict in that way that they don't want to share their stuff with a lot of people. They have a lot of restrictions. I'm sure you might be aware about. So in fact, for this session, I will definitely going to take permission with them because you never know, they will just send some strike sometimes. So these people are very particular about that, but that's okay. Okay, but then we have full-fledged safe assessment over there. So that's there. Okay. You
good
will
for the
get that
audience to know.
spider, you will get a spider chart, that radar chart out of
Exactly.
it. Then you will know that, okay, these are the areas which we need improvement. So that's the entire, I think, a discussion altogether. So let's move on to our session right now. Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, this is, I think, one of the, I would say, misconception about these three different roles. Earlier, we have project manager and agile coach, scrum master. Now, these RTs also came into picture. So, of course, there are like lot of role and responsibilities, maybe like couple of responsibilities which may be overlap. But what is your take on this? If you are to summarize, like, what are your key takeaways from these three different roles, Malcolm?
All right. Like you said, I think a lot of it, responsibilities kind of overlap. Uh, the release train engineer role, I don't know of it existing outside of the SAFe framework, but it's very similar in my experience to roles like the agile program manager, things of that nature. So it uh, kind of includes the responsibilities to a certain extent of a program manager and an agile coach, because your goal going in is to help this release train move to agility as much as possible. But a lot of times in a lot of organizations, you're also somewhat held responsibility for delivery, because you do or can impact delivery when impediments comes up, blockers come up, helping with the planning of things. So you have, in that way, there's similarities, because that's something that a project manager would do. If there's things that are impeding the project, if there are things that are blockers in a project, if there are vendors that we're working with, they would ask that person to help orchestrate that dependency and communicate with those people and stuff. So in a release train engineer role, you do those things, but you're also, or they're also looking to you for that guidance from an agility standpoint. So you have scrum masters on each team usually, or scrum masters that serve the team on that train, product owners that serve the teams on that train. And a lot of times they're looking for you for advice and coaching and help with their teams on how to, again, move closer to agility, how to remove waste from what they're doing, how to deliver in an iterative fashion. And then also at the program level, probably the individuals that you're working with, whether it be, your technical lead or your product lead, whatever title they hold, whether it be director or what have you, whoever handles those two areas, they're probably also looking for guidance at a program level, how to help understand how we move from this old way of doing things to a new agile way that's going to allow us to provide value quicker to our users and get a lot more feedback so that we can make proper adjustments more quickly than we used to. So I think in summary, I would just say it's a combination of both, where you kind of do oversee initiatives and help to usher them to completion, but at the same time, how these things come to completion are changing, and they're looking for you to help implement those changes.
Great. Okay, so just to summarize, uh, RTs are responsible for coordinating multiple agile teams, whereas PMs are responsible for delivering specific projects, and agile coaches are responsible for guiding the teams in adopting and improving the agile methodology, I think, just to summarize all these three roles in a nutshell. Okay, so yep, that's it.
Uh,
Okay, I just enjoyed. I don't know. I mean, how much is time? Half an hour or 1 hour. So, friends, yeah, this is just part one. Definitely, we will have more sessions with Malcolm in future. So, friends, if you find value from this session, please make sure that you have to like and subscribe to our channel, and please share this useful content with all your LinkedIn connections. Right. So, with this thought, thank you, Malcolm. And if you want to say something in the last.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to share some of my experience or things that I do with your audience. Hopefully they find some value out of it, and
course.
hopefully they have a new or different perspective of the RTE role.
Of course. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, Malcolm. See you.
Thank you.